Hi everybody, CohhCarnage here with a quick top-level video on outposts, what they are, and most importantly for what I get asked about all the time, what do all these red lines mean, how do they work, how do we make them connect, that kind of stuff. So that's what we're gonna do right now. So first of all, let's talk outposts. What is an outpost? An outpost is two things. It is something you build for fun, where you can show off your gear, you can build all sorts of like cool interiors. There's hab modules, you can set up workbenches here, you can set up turrets and have robots and station crews here, you can have tables and coffee tables and office partitions and storage boxes and safes and signs and all sorts of stuff. So it's a creative building thing, for one thing. And the second thing is that it's a way to farm and passively harvest resources from all over the universe. And we're gonna be focusing more on that second one today for this video. So we're gonna start at the very beginning. What perks do you want / need for an outpost? So if you open up your character thing here, we're primarily looking in science, and we're looking for a few different ones. First of all, scanning is going to let you easily identify where to place bases, and we will be talking about that in a minute. Then we also have outpost engineering, which unlocks more and higher tiers of extractors, of power generators, of, in some cases, security stuff, all that kind of things. We also down here have special projects, which comes for the most advanced things that you can build. And then we also have planetary habitation, which is very important if you want to make a giant universe-sprawling network, as it increases the amount of outposts you can actually have. You are limited by this with a finite number. So as you can see, getting 16 of those with the top rank is definitely a good idea. On top of that, there's also a relatively important perk in the social tree that you're going to want to be working towards, and that is outpost management, specifically for this top one, which I don't have yet, but also for all these things here being fantastic for outposts. But let's go ahead and kind of dive into it here. So what I'm going to show you real quick is 3 to 4 little tips to get you started. Now, the first one is, how do I get these outposts running? And the question that's kind of a small bit before that is, where do I know to put outposts? How do I know and where to put them down? So let's start with that. Let's say that you want to start with an iron outpost. You've noticed in your travels that a lot of your research needs iron, and substitute iron for any resource in the game. You want iron, you want to know where to get it, and once you know, you kind of want to go from there. So the first thing you do is you start scanning, you start looking around the universe. Now, there's not really a great way to kind of proactively find this. You just kind of need to, throughout your travels, kind of be looking at planets, looking at moons, maybe even jotting down, you know, in the Steam Notes feature or your notes, where some of the more rare resources are. But when you click on a planet, you're presented with this interface. The resources available are here. The ones that you'll get by default when you hit R are the ones that have no dots on them. If you notice, some resources have dots on them. You only see those resources if you have higher levels in scanning. So if we look here, we can see this big color here is lead. This color here is water. Now we also have this chlorosilanes here, and we only see that because we have a rank 1 in scanning, which is the scanning ability under the science tab. So keep in mind, if you're looking for more rare things, you're definitely going to want to look into getting higher levels of scanning so you can see it. Here's another example of Bondar here. We can see on our screen, on our map here, we only see up to tungsten. This planet also has platinum and xenon, but since I don't have ranks 2 and 3, you can tell by the dots. In scanning, I don't actually know where they are. So just keep that in mind. So anyway, going back to what we were talking about before. So we are looking for iron. So the first step is to find a planet that has the resource you want on it. So in this case, we'll look up here. Oh, look, here's this little place called Grissom. Wow, it's full of iron. So we can see anywhere where the brown is, that's where iron is. Now, what I generally recommend to you guys, since you have a finite amount of resources, is try to double up or even rarely triple up on what resources you can get in your outposts. So what you generally want to do is build near the borders of multiple different things. So here we have helium, here we have iron. I try to build like on the border between the two, and that will, it seems, as no one's really sure how this works, but it seems like that increases your chances of getting multiple resources in the same area. So we already have an outpost here. But actually what I'll do is I'll show you before we get started exactly what this looks like. So we're going to pick a landing spot. I'm carrying too much and can't fast travel, which is kind of a purveying thing in this playthrough. So let's real quick run over to my ship. And we'll kind of go from here. If you're not encumbered, you're doing it wrong. That's what I say. Here's our custom ship that we made. We'll probably go over that in another video if you're interested. All right. Let's go ahead and take off.
We're cleared for liftoff.
Okay. So, we have scanned planets. We have found what we're looking for, in this case, iron, and we want to start getting that going. So we're going to go to our planet with iron. We're going to hit R to show the resources, like that. We're going to pick a landing point, preferably on a border. Now, whenever you click, whatever's highlighted is what's going to be the primary resource in there. So we want to make sure it says iron. Now, what we do now is start scanning with the F key, and you will look on the ground for basically big blotches of where that item is, which I'll show you here in a second. There's another trick to this too that I'll show you, but this is the primary way to do it. So first you exit your ship, you bring up your scanner,
Captain, greetings.
and there you go. You'll immediately see a patch, generally, of whatever the primary resource is in the area. So there's iron right there. You can also look around and find more. Now, if you're lucky, what you'll be able to do is get like multiple different resources next to each other. So you can have one outpost be generating multiple different things. Like we have in a neighboring system, we have a mine that has aluminum and beryllium, and they're both in the same outpost. So we have an outpost there, so we can mine both of those at the same time under one kind of umbrella of a single outpost. And that way we're maximizing how many minerals we can bring in with the limited amount of outposts we have. So anyway, I'll show you what we're doing here, and we'll just break it down later. So once you found a place that you like here, for instance, you then hit, oh wait, I have 0 outposts left. So normally you would hit R to place an outpost. That then brings you down to the overhead view. And at that point you start building. So normally I would show you here how to do that. But what we're going to do instead is we're just going to go over to our iron outpost, and I'll show you what that looks like, as we already have an iron outpost here. Now, something very convenient, by the way, is when you are going into the outpost build menu, which is F and then R, you can hit the V key to get a top-down view, which is, of course, very handy. The mouse pulling back zooms out, which is a little weird, but that's, you know, that's how it works. So the first thing you do is you want to hit C to go over to your extractors. That will show you where you need to build the extractor. I don't know why there's a circle around this, because apparently it doesn't matter. I think that may be like, maybe you have to build it, yeah, outside of a radius of that. As long as you are on the resource, then you are max extracting. So you don't need to like place the circle around the resource or anything like that. Once you have an extractor down, you will notice that in the bottom right, your total needed power, your needed power will go up. At that point, you also want to then go to your power section and start building the power you need to make sure that you're balanced. And at that point, you are extracting minerals. So if an outpost is up, an extractor is down, and it is powered, it will be making minerals. Now it is, or extracting whatever resource you're getting. Now it is important to mention that the bank on extractors is very tiny. So one of the things you'll want to do is either transfer them to a main hub, which we'll go over in a second, or you want to make sure that there's a storage near it, like this, to store that mineral. At that point, if you hit tab to go back to modify mode, you can just right click on the extractor and then right click on your storage, and everything that extractor makes will then automatically get put into that storage, which is super easy. Now, if you notice, there's no storage here at this base, which is, of course, a problem, right? Well, it's not, because I'm going to go over that in just a second. Real quick before we continue, though, I do want to show you one other cool thing about this. When you're finding a place to put down your base, instead of manually looking like this, you can just put down the outpost build. And what'll happen is if you look in the top left, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. Actually, let me do this real quick. I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to go over here. And I'm going to delete this outpost so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about here. So, when you are placing an outpost for the first time, if you look in the top left, that will show you all the available outposts, all the available resources that that outpost can get. So what you can do is then move that around, and if you move it into range of other resources, then it will then populate instantly that top left list. So you can super easily just like really broadly scan around to see if you can find multiple resources. It's much better to do this on a planet where you're like, again, right on the border of two resources and you know that there might be like a rare one somewhere around you. This is a very, very fast way to get that done. So anyway, going back to what we did, that has now covered how to find the resources, how to then decide where to put your outpost, and how to extract the stuff from the ground. Now, if you don't mind jetting around to all your outposts, at that point, you just build storage and you're essentially done. When you come back to your outposts at a later time, your storage will be full of that resource, you move it onto your ship, and you are done. However, you might be like me. And what I am is I like having all my stuff in one place. I like all of my mining and resource outposts to funnel back to one place. And then in that one place, I can stockpile like some kind of hoarder all of the stuff that I'm doing in the outposts. And that is where cargo pads come in. So these are cargo pads, and there are two different kinds of cargo pads. There are inter-system cargo pads, which do not require helium, and then there are well, actually, I guess those are called interplanetary. And then you have inter-system pads, which require helium, which are the same as cargo pads, except they can go between entire systems. So I'm going to show you now how they work. The way that a cargo pad works is you just build it like normal. Now keep in mind, you can only have 3 pads per base without getting more perks. So they're very limited at the beginning. You're going to have to kind of balance how many outposts you have with how many cargo pads you have. It's kind of a mess. So if you want to make a big expansive network, I very much recommend going for the perk early in the social outpost management that lets you have more cargo pads per base, which is very important. But basically the way that this works is that when you select a cargo pad, and I don't think I can make any more here, unfortunately, because you can see in the top left it says 3 of 3. When you put a cargo pad down, if you are moving that resource somewhere else in the system you're in, then you only need the cargo link. If you are shipping in this area or shipping in this resource from outside of the system, that's when you need the inter-system link. The way that cargo pads work is each of the places need to have a cargo pad. So in this case, we have one cargo pad right here, and you can access them by this little control console on them. And then we have another cargo pad, for instance, this one is transporting from Eridani and then linking to here. So the way that cargo pads work is think of them as incredibly, incredibly basic in-out structures. This side is always going to be outgoing. So if this cargo pad is connected to another cargo pad in another colony, every time this ship lands, it is going to take anything going into outgoing, it is going to fly it to the other cargo pad, and it's going to put it in its incoming. If there is, so in other words, whenever a ship lands, it drops off the incoming, and when it leaves, it takes out of the outgoing. So the reason that's important for us to know is now, using this knowledge, we can very easily connect incoming and outgoing cargo links on other pads with resource generators in our outposts to then funnel our goods through networks of colonies back to one place. And if you think about it, it's kind of like a flow chart, kind of like a pyramid style flow chart that kind of goes down. And at the very bottom of that flow chart are just colonies with pads, like funneling all this stuff back up to the top. Your main base is usually sitting at the top, and that's how it kind of goes. So just to kind of give you an idea about what we're talking about here, and I'll show you in a little bit more easy to view thing, easy to view here. This pad right here goes to our primary base. This inter-system pad goes to another system called Eridani. So if you've noticed, when this lands, that means it's going to drop off resources from Eridani, which then are dropped off into the incoming, which if you're looking down is always the left side. This link right here, you can see in the top left, the source is the incoming of that cargo pad. The target is the outgoing of the left cargo pad. So let's just say, in this case, I think it's Europium. So this ship lands, it drops off Europium into here. The link then moves it to here, which then puts it in the outgoing of the cargo pad to our main base. And that means when this cargo ship takes off, it's going to take the Europium that came from another system right back to our main base. Now, what's cool about this is that anything in the outgoing goes to the main base with this cargo link. So we also have it connected to the iron generator that's here, and this, which is connected to a different system farming other resources. So as you can see with the link here, this one's incoming. So when the ship lands here, it moves into the incoming. That then goes over to the outgoing here, and then all of this stuff gets picked up and taken back to our main base. So that's how this stuff works. Now, the only kind of gotcha with these is if you notice, this is an interplanetary, this is just a regular cargo link. It's not an inter-system cargo link. It's a regular cargo link. So it does not have the little structure back here. This one is inter-system. If you notice, there's a little tiny structure on the back there. That's because this one requires helium, and it won't work properly without helium. So what we do, what is best to do is whenever you have a transport hub that's connected to other systems, you want to make sure that on that planet is helium, so you can set up like a little mine. Here's a little helium mine, and that helium extractor is powering this pad. And then if you look over here, here's a second helium extractor, which is then powering this pad. So whenever you have outposts that are moving resources between systems, you generally want to have the ones that are actually doing the moving between the systems on planets with helium on them. So we have gone over a lot in this video, but now you should have a good idea how to scan from the atmosphere, how to pick a good site, how to then find the minerals in that site, how to set up extractors with cargo, and then how to take that cargo and move it between systems into your cargo links, which then move them around the universe. With all that information, that is all you need to work on this system. So going back to our main base, I think using the stuff we're talking about here, I'm pretty sure I have currently about 12 different resources that are funneling into our base, and we're limited by how many outposts I have. By the time I'm done, I would like to have pretty much every resource in the game being funneled back to our main base, so we'll always be able to do that. Now, real quick, I do want to mention, although this system seems really cool, and I probably should have said this at the beginning of the video, you don't need to do any of this. There are vendors in every city that sell pretty much everything you can get. So if you just want to go around, do bounties, get a lot of money, you can pretty much buy everything you need. In fact, one little tip that I'll throw in here that's super handy to know, if you ever want to build anything or research anything or basically do anything, when you have that highlighted up there, if you hit the R key to track it, just like in Fallout 4, that will put a little magnifying glass next to it. And when you're looking in vendors, all of those little magnifying glasses will light up so you know exactly what you need to buy. which is awesome. So, this is a really fun kind of exciting little thing to do when you build your outposts. Or the outpost building is kind of like this fun little side thing. And if you really get into it, I mean, you could like decorate your habs and have like a super big base and have mannequins with all of your armor, and you could have weapon displays with all of your unique weapons. Like there's all sorts of fun stuff you could do. And then of course you could have this whole resource generation funneling thing on top of it. But I do want to let you guys know before you get too far into this, this system is very wanting. You can't control or cap resource generation. So you basically have like huge influxes of resources that you have no control over. The way that the storage is done is very poor, as every storage compartment is its own compartment, and there's no way to like globally look at everything in an outpost. There's lots of things I'm hoping they'll change and update in this, but it's still really fun to do. And if you're like me and you're just kind of a Bob the Builder kind of guy, it's a very fun system to explore, and I recommend checking it out. So we may make more advanced stuff on this later as I learn more about it and make a larger system, but I think that's pretty much covering the basics. I hope this video helped you in its long rambling sense. And of course, come say hi on twitch.tv/CohhCarnage. We'd love to see you. See you guys then. Bye-bye.